Hi there, I'm Dorothea, and this is Wednesday Word Share. Today, I'm going to share with you a message that I gave to our church this past Sunday, and it was actually the offering message, but there's so much in it that doesn't necessarily have to be about giving of your finances, although that is a major part of our lives. Giving of our finances, giving of our time, giving of our gifts, our talents. It's about the principle of the first. And so that applies really to anything in your life that is a resource to you. Whether it's your job, your family, your relationships, your time with God, your gifts, your talents, everything that you have that is a resource is connected to this principle of the first. And so when you understand the principle of the first and you begin to honor that and you begin to obey that, God is really setting you up for great success, and I'm going to show you how. So first, I'm going to teach you about what the principle of the first is, and then I'm going to show you some things as it pertains to you and your salvation. I'm going to show you how it pertains to you and your faith and how God blesses faith. And so here we go. We're going to start out in Exodus chapter 13. We're going to read verse 2, and then we're going to skip down and read verses 12 to 13. And this is going to be about the principle of the firstborn, but we're also going to talk about the principle of first fruits as well. So here we go. Exodus 13:2. It says, "Consecrate to me all the firstborn, whatever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine." Okay, so God is saying any creature that is the firstborn of any of your animals and of your people, the firstborn belong to the Lord. Now go down to verse 12 and 13. It says, "You shall set apart to the Lord all that open the womb, that is, every firstborn that comes from an animal which you have. The males shall be the Lord's. But every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. And all the firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem." Okay, so there's some things that we find out here. There are some things, number one, that whatever the firstborn is, it belongs to the Lord. But then there's a differentiation in there. There's clean and there are unclean. Okay, so if it's a clean animal, say a lamb, then that firstborn lamb is going to actually be sacrificed to the Lord completely. You do not get to keep that animal. You're going to sacrifice it and give it to the Lord. But if it's a donkey, which is considered to be an unclean animal, if you choose that you want to keep that donkey, then you have to redeem it. You have, because it's unclean, and so you have to sacrifice a clean animal for that unclean animal. And so normally they would take a lamb and sacrifice the lamb to redeem the donkey. Now, if you notice here, it says, "All the firstborn of man among you, you shall redeem." Okay, you're not going to sacrifice, you're not going to kill your firstborn child, but you are going to have to redeem that child, because do you get the language? The human race is born unclean and has to be redeemed. And so they would take a lamb and they would sacrifice the lamb and redeem the child. Okay, this is just amazing foreshadowing and symbology here, because if you haven't caught on to it already, Jesus became our sacrificial lamb, because what? He's God's firstborn. So the firstborn clean has to be what? Sacrificed. Okay? Jesus had to be sacrificed because he was the firstborn of the clean among us, okay? So he was sacrificed, but he was able to be sacrificed on our behalf because he was like us. He covered us. We were the unclean and we needed redemption. So God followed his own rules, right? He set forth the things in his law that show us how to be clean, how to be holy, how to approach a holy God. And these are some of the things that he put out there to sacrifice, to give to him the first of your things. And if it's an unclean thing, okay, it has to be redeemed. And he said, okay, I'm going to give you my clean firstborn son. He's the Lamb of God. I remember how John the Baptist, when he saw Jesus coming, how he spoke out and he declared, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." And that was exactly who Jesus was. And so God gave him for the redemption of the unclean, sinful, sin nature of mankind. So he did that for us. Romans 5:8. See, here's the thing. Here's where faith comes in. I'm going to talk a little more about that here in a sec. But here's where the faith comes into giving the first is, when you have a lamb, you have and she has her firstborn, and you have to sacrifice that. There is no guarantee that there's going to be anything coming after that. So it requires faith to give God the first of whatever it is that you're talking about that you're going to give. So Romans 5:8 says that God demonstrates his love. He demonstrates his love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So God didn't wait until mankind said, "Oh, okay, I'm going to serve you, God. Okay, then I'll give Jesus." No, he gave Jesus in advance of our decision. We were still living in our sin. We were still not right with God, not even trying to be right with God. And God gave Jesus, his firstborn, to redeem us from our sin once we would accept the gift that he was offering to us. So I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the principle of the first. I decided after I had recorded the whole thing, it ended up being almost 17 minutes, that I would just go ahead and divide it into 2 parts. So today's section was about the firstborn, the principle of the firstborn. And next week, I'm going to go into talking about the principle of first fruits. So hold on to your horses. It'll all be tied up in the second half, but I just didn't want to take up too much of your time. So I'll see you next week.